Hey, Prime members, you can listen to Morbid early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the app today.
Hey, weirdos. I'm Elena.
I'm Ash.
And this is Morbid.
It do be.
My voice is like almost back.
I don't think it sounds too bad.
It doesn't? Okay, good.
No.
It always sounds worse to me.
No, she might wince a few times throughout this, though.
Yeah. I hurt a rib coughing.
Cracked a rib.
I have like
coughing.
a hairline fracture.
Who the fuck gets a hairline fracture coughing?
You
How
know-
violently do you cough?
This was I don't know if any of you out there, I know some of you out there are experiencing this because
Everyone is.
everyone's fucking sick. And
Yeah.
we've
Gross.
had this like fucking illness that just spread around my fam bam. And it was for weeks.
Spread around my fam jam.
You know? And it was literally like 4 weeks straight of all of us just not being able to get over this.
Girly girl, I don't know why you're talking in the past tense. It sounds like a TB ward up in here.
It
still.
does. And now you're part of it. You're coughing up in here.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is. We're taking everybody down with us.
I
but
feel fine though.
I've been on antibiotics. I'm good to go.
Don't you have pneumonia right now?
No, I had pneumonia.
Oh, okay.
But I got that's the thing. This whole thing started with
That's
these
the
weird
thing.
little that's the thing with these things, you know?
And thing.
They all started with these weird colds and then we all got like some kind of respiratory thing. I got
Yeah.
pneumonia and then we all got secondary infections with it.
Yeah.
I got a sinus infection.
I have been taking, I don't know about you, well, hopefully, I've been taking so many COVID tests.
Oh, we've been COVID testing like it's going out of style.
Yeah.
Because we've also been going to the doctors and getting them too.
Yeah.
It's been wild up in here. But
My nose hurts.
we're close to being like knocking on wood here. We're all feeling like decent.
Okay.
So I'm like, let's please just keep this going. But my goodness, does my rib hurt?
Yeah, that's rough.
It's not great, but
That's not fun.
I'll get through it. We'll be fine together.
You'll survive.
You know, we'll
You
be
will
fine.
survive.
I think the other day I just like manically bought ghost merch about it.
I love that for you. I manically bought a new pair of, I shouldn't even say a new pair because it's a first pair for me. I bought my first pair of Jordans, guys.
Look at you.
And they're
Proud of you.
They're purple and they're velvet.
Ooh. Oh, you showed me a picture of those.
I can't wait to buy them. And
love that.
I also manically bought those. So
I love it.
We love a manic purchase.
Yeah, I think I was just like really frustrated being sick and I was like, I'm going to buy a bunch of ghost merch.
I think I was just in my brain and it said, buy things to make you happy. It'll work until it doesn't. Just buy things until you're happy. Yeah.
Woo!
Make that a TikTok sound.
I like that.
I think it's a little too fast for a TikTok sound.
It might be.
The 30-second clip. Okay.
Yeah, you know, here we are.
I don't know if you guys can tell, but it is Morbid Late Night.
It sure is.
It do be.
It is.
But it's my case this week. It's Ash-centric.
It's an Ash-centric case.
I don't want to claim her.
Oh, yeah.
Even this case is not Ash-centric.
I don't want to claim
I
this.
don't claim this.
I could hear you while you were like writing this one, and I was like, huh. What's gonna happen here?
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, I wrote a few things and I was like, huh, look what I just wrote. And she was like, what the fuck is this case?
I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, this is the case of Candy Mossler and Melvin Powers.
Uh-oh.
They were fucking.
Yeah.
They were also related.
Eek.
Badnewsbears.com.
That's bad news.
/yucky.
.org.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it all starts on June 29th, 1964.
Oh, we're in the 60s.
Of course, I love it. It's groovy, man.
It is very groovy.
And on June 29th, 1964, wealthy Florida banker Jacques Mosler was stabbed to death in his home in Key Biscayne. I didn't look up how to say that, and I'm sorry.
That sounds good.
Thank you. I hope it does.
It did.
So at the time, he was actually separated from his wife, Candace. She actually had moved to Houston, and she was just living a life of luxury on Jacques' dime.
Ooh.
Which, like, get it, girl, but like, don't.
But like, uh-oh.
Like, yeah, like live a life of luxury, but like on your own dime.
Yeah.
You know?
And already I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, Candace.
Candace.
He provided her with a very generous monthly allowance. It was to support the children, but it definitely wasn't just going to the children. I think she was like giving herself a lot of that. But now, because Jacques' murder was so brutal, police actually believed that it was a crime of passion, which made his wife one of the primary suspects. And it really didn't take long for the detectives' hunch to be proven right. Candace Mossler was responsible for the death. But as I love to say, that was just the beginning.
It was only the beginning.
It was only the beginning. The scandalous and sensational trial of Candace Candy Mossler and her nephew turned lover. What a sentence.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, Melvin Powers was one of those trials of the century. It was filled with money, power, lurid stories of incestuous sex.
Oh.
And Jacques' murder didn't necessarily start like American tabloid journalism, but it dragged it into its modern era.
That makes sense.
Many tabloids were written about this, and readers were devouring every fucking detail. All of the details were outrageous, and they were page turners.
Oh, yeah. It was like a blind item.
Yep. So Jacques, he was born Jacques Moscovici. I did look that up, and I gave myself a phonetic key. Look at that. He was born on May 5th, 1896 in Galatz, Romania, to Jacob and Sophie Moscovici. When Romanian society became like more and more hostile toward Jews at the end of the 19th century, Jacob and Sophie were like, you know what? I think we're going to take these 3 children that we have and get the fuck out of here.
I think that was a great choice.
I do agree. They wanted to move to the U.S. because back then people wanted to do that. And they decided to settle in Buffalo, New York.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
And that was in January of 1901. Now, years later, when he was about 12 years old, Jacques' parents actually ended up separating. And he moved in with his mom and his siblings to Chicago. And his father moved away and kind of like did his own thing in the Bronx.
Just like dipped.
Yeah, sort of.
Wow.
I know.
That's not great.
No, it's not.
Wow.
Sad.
Okay. Yeah. I just love. No, it's not.
No, just not.
That's
not
the
great.
that on that.
I'm like,
All see you later.
Can't argue that
Yeah.
point. It's sad when your dad leaves.
It
Trust
is.
me.
Yeah, I imagine. Like, trust me.
Just kidding. But yeah. So now that he didn't have the luxury of being supported by 2 incomes, Jacques actually decided to drop out of school pretty much just after they arrived in Chicago. And he started selling newspapers and candy, not his like soon-to-be wife, but actual candy.
But like actual num candy.
Num candy,
Yeah.
precisely. He would sell the newspapers and candy on the city street corners, and he was just like trying to help support his family.
That's cute.
It really is. So in 1915, when he was 19 years old, he decided he was going to change his last name because he wanted it to be like a little more American. You know, I think he just wanted that.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Me. So he changed it to Mossler, and he moved again. And this time he moved to New Orleans, and he found work as a loan manager for a local car dealership. Pretty good job. And it was the first of many jobs for him in the finance industry. With the success that he ended up having as a loan manager, he felt pretty confident in his abilities after a couple of years, and he actually made the leap and started his own business that he named Mossler Motor Exchange.
Oh.
I'd shop there.
Yeah, I love an alliteration.
I do too.
So let's go.
Yeah, he opened it in 1918 with the help of a small loan from people that he had back in Chicago, some business associates.
Those people, you know, those friends.
Associates.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that same year, he married his GF, Evelyn Kaiser.
Look at Evelyn.
Just like, they're just killing it.
They are.
You know, like new business, new lady, let's go. Now, Jacques and Evelyn worked side by side at Mossler Motor Exchange, and they were able to grow the company more and more, especially as automobiles became more accessible to people. The auto industry at that point was like kind of really just coming into fruition. Like cars weren't necessarily new, but it was becoming more and more mainstream.
Yeah.
And along with that came repossession of cars.
Uh-oh.
On owners that couldn't pay for the loans they had taken out to buy said cars.
Repo the genetic opera.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
So Jacques could have chosen to see that as a risk, But like the businessman that he was, he saw an opportunity there and he opened one of the first car rental agencies in the American South.
Look at him.
Okay. Now, by 1930, Jacques' business smarts allowed him and Evelyn to move to a way bigger home in New Orleans. And just after they moved in, Evelyn gave birth to a daughter who would be followed by 3 more girls by the end of 1935.
It's a lot of gals.
So many kids. He actually ends up with a lot of fucking kids by the end of this, and I just
a lot
realized
of fucking
that.
kids.
No, like a lot of fucking kids.
Wow.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, maybe. I don't know, a lot.
He's a fan of procreation.
Loves it.
Loves to procreate.
And adopting.
There you go.
So by all accounts, his story was like kind of like not even kind of, by all accounts, it was the quintessential American story of somebody who came to America with nothing, but used their street smarts and their fucking power and their gumption and turned it into boatloads of success.
The American dream.
The American dream, if you will. So by the 1950s, the Mossler brand, if you will, had expanded, and they now offered a ton of different lending products and services in Louisiana and in Florida. But unfortunately, Jacques' success was built, at least in part, on the failure and misfortune of others.
Oh,
because
that's bad.
His company would offer high-interest loans to borrowers with low credit ratings who were more than likely to default on those loans. And actually, this happened so frequently, which it's not funny, I'm just nervous laughing. It happened so frequently that one of his former business partners referred to him as brutal, inhuman, ruthless, indecent, and cold-blooded.
Here I am being like, you know what, Jacques? Look at you. Get it, Jacques. Go, Jacques. And then it's like, nah, he was like a fucking monster. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, well, that's just like one person's account. You know?
It's just one person.
Other people liked him. Other people
it's
didn't.
a real bummer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think you should go into business knowing full well that, like, promising people a good amount of money and then saying, like, oh, I know you're probably not going to pay this
that's not
back.
great.
It's mean business.
It is. It's not nice business.
You know?
I don't know Jacques, though.
Me either.
I never bought a car from him, so I don't know.
Me either. I did buy a car from a lot of shady people, though.
There you go.
At one point in my life.
Haven't we all?
And I never defaulted on my loans, though. So
Good for
there's
you.
that. Yeah. I was going to say, and I defaulted. And I was like, no, I didn't do that.
No, I did not. That's
Never-
a feather in your cap.
Never
right there.
did. So like Jacques' kind of, grim upbringing in business, the early years of not our girl really, but for the sake of the story, our girl, Candy Mossler's life, they were a far cry from the Southern high society in which her life would end.
Oh, really?
Yes, Candace Weatherby, her maiden name. She was born in the tiny Georgia town of Buchanan.
Oh, I love the name Buchanan.
I also do because of
Daisy
the
Buchanan.
beautiful Daisy Buchanan.
There you go.
Yeah. So she was born on February 18th, 1920. She was the 5th of 9 children born to Lizzie and Lonnie Weatherby.
Stop.
Like, Lizzie and Lonnie, can we just?
Lizzie and Lonnie.
So freaking cute. I love.
Adorable.
But sadly, life was kind of hard for this family. First of all, it's a huge fucking family.
Yeah.
They're a rural family, and everybody in this family was expected to work on and help out with the family farm.
Family.
Do you ever realize how much you write one word?
Rural juror.
Rural family. Now, yeah, so like everybody had to help out on the farm, even the kids. They had jobs like picking cotton, collecting all the eggs, the whole nine. Now, tragically, in 1932, when Candy was 12, this is really sad, her mom gave birth to a stillborn baby girl.
Oh, that's awful.
And not only that, she also ended up dying 2 days later, her mom, because of the complications from the delivery.
That's awful.
Yeah, because remember, this is like in the 30s, you know?
Yeah.
So this meant that Candy's father was going to have to be the sole caregiver and the only financial support for the 6 remaining children in the house.
Whoa.
According to Candy, the strain of being solely responsible for so much in the wake of such an incredible tragedy really caused her dad to have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And so he had to just like get out of there. He left the kids in the care of their maternal grandparents, who were William and Priscilla Brannon. And he moved away to a nearby town and just kind of like started over. But I don't even think he started over. I think it was more like he just went there.
He just went
was
deeper into a hole.
Yeah, exactly. Like was alone.
Oy.
But I'm sure that caused like a lot of abandonment issues for the kids, you know?
Of course.
So any hope that Candy had that life with her grandparents would be any kind of improvement to the life that she had on the farm quickly evaporated.
Oh, no.
Pretty much as soon as she moved in with them, she realized that this was like at best a lateral move.
Oh.
Yeah. To escape the really shitty reality that had become her life, though, when she was a teenager, she spent as much time as she could reading tabloid magazines, fashion magazines. She was just dreaming of the day when she could leave this small Georgia town and just go do like glamorous shit. That's all she wanted to do.
Classic.
Yeah. But unfortunately for her, her grandfather, who was a Mormon bishop, had other plans for her.
Uh-oh.
He wanted to marry her off, and he had already chosen the man that was going to make that all happen.
Oh, come on.
In 1937, when she was in 11th grade, Candy had to drop out of high school, and she started dating Albert Norman Johnson. He was 11 years older than her.
Ew.
And he had been handpicked for her by her grandfather.
And I'm saying ew because normally that's like 11 years is not crazy in the grand scheme of things. But when one of you is in high school, that's too much.
That's way too many years.
And that's ew.
And it's like, I don't want to be set up by my grandpa.
No.
I don't want my
Especially
grandpa
not when
to be
I'm
like,
not even finished with high school yet. Like,
this
thank
is
you.
the man you're going to marry.
Like, no, thank you, Albert.
And they did get married. They got married in 1939, and they ended up moving to Alabama.
Okay.
So random, right?
That's very random.
Yeah. But Norman got work there as a superintendent for a concrete company. He brought in like a little more than $1,300 a year, which today would be about $27,000 a year. So like, not like the best, but not the worst.
But things were so different that it's like,
yeah, I don't even really
you wouldn't
know
even know how to like compare that.
Yeah, exactly. So 3 years later, Candy gave birth to a son, and they named him Norman after his dad. And at 20 years old in 1940, she was a married mom living in a rented house in small town Alabama. She didn't have a lot of friends. She was worlds away from where she had pictured herself so many years earlier. And this was a far cry from what she'd been hoping for.
Yeah.
Like, she wanted to live a glamorous life. She wanted to, like, be fashionable and all this stuff.
Get out of the small town living kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just sucked. And then between the age gap and how different they both were, Norman and Candy also just really didn't have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
They didn't share anything in common, really. And all they really had together was a kid. So they'd be like, hey, how's the kid? But that could only go so far, you know? And on top of that, Candy didn't have really any social outlet. So she felt completely isolated and kind of like her life was just passing before her eyes when at the same time, it really hadn't started.
It was just dragging.
You know?
Yeah.
But her opportunity for escape finally presented itself in the winter of 1942.
You don't say.
Yes, she was volunteering as a hostess for the United States organization, the USO. She had joined this USO a few months earlier, and this was when the U.S. entered into World War I. And in March of 1942, she and about 100 other young ladies, they were shuttled off to Alabama to entertain the troops at a USO dance at Fort Benning.
This is all very 40s.
I love it so fucking much. I can picture it. It's literally the beginning of Memphis Belle.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, Memphis Belle is my shit.
Such a good movie.
I love that movie.
Matthew
Modine in that movie. Chef's kiss.
I haven't seen that movie in so long.
Me neither. Damn it, I want to watch that movie
I want to watch that movie so bad. Me and Drew have already committed to disassociating this weekend. We have like a lot going on. You. Yeah, so maybe I'll show him that movie.
I love that.
I always tell him what a good movie that is.
I always tell John what a good movie that is.
Have you never showed it to him?
I don't think I've ever showed it to him.
Maybe we should both do that this weekend.
I think we should do
but
that.
I love you, but like separately because we're disassociating.
Yeah. And I'm for that as well. So
rock on.
I know every time I think of something like this, like a 40s USO dance, like, you know, with the troops and all that shit, I think of that song that always plays on those kind of things. That's like, don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me.
Oh my God.
Anyone else but me. I love that.
I don't know if I know that song.
It's a very like three sisters are always singing it in harmony together.
So we just need one more gal.
You know?
Okay.
We just need it.
Deb.
And it's very 40s.
I like
it's like, don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. And then it's like, till I come marching home. So it's like, like a troop.
I love that.
Like a troop,
like
you know?
You should have seen the hand motion she did.
It's like a troop.
That signified troop.
Like a troop coming home.
You're funny.
It's cute.
It also reminds me of the episode of Gilmore Girls where they have to do the dance.
That's literally exactly what I think of. And I think they are singing that song at that dance.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, full circle.
Yep, there we are.
Well, it was there that Candy met a man named Winthrop Wynne Rockefeller.
Yeah, she did.
And she said, work me off a piece of that.
She said Winthrop.
She said, Wynne.
Count me in.
He was a U.S. Army. That was funny. He was a U.S. Army sergeant, and he was heir to a Rockefeller fortune.
Oh, yeah. You hear Rockefeller, it's like, oh,
yeah, fucking, I don't even care what you look like. I'm in. Just kidding. And as luck would have it, he was stationed at Fort Benning.
Oh, my God.
So Candy claimed that the two carried on an illicit affair. She visited Fort Benning every chance she could. And she did end up becoming pregnant.
That's an affair.
That's an affair. And she eventually gave birth to a daughter who she named Candace Rita Johnson.
Cute.
I don't know if Norman knew.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if he was like, I don't know if he thought that Rita was like his child.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a little sad.
That's shitty.
Yeah.
That's really shitty, Candace.
It is. She also Lorelai Gilmore'd it.
Yeah.
She named her daughter Candace after
you're
herself.
right.
Yeah. So
Weird.
much Gilmore Girls. I think it might come up later too.
Whoa.
Now, there is some speculation on whether this affair actually happened or not, because like Rockefeller, like everybody says they fucked a Rockefeller, you know?
You can't throw a stone outside without hitting somebody that's like, I fucked a Rockefeller.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's always been my problem.
Yeah.
Every time I bump into someone, they're like, I fucked a Rockefeller. And I'm like, fuck. Am I the only one?
I'm like, fuck. No, I never did.
All right, cool.
But, you know, so who knows if it happened, because everybody's saying
who does know?
But either way, Candy and Wynn would have had to part ways in January of 1944 because at that point he was shipped off to the Pacific to actually serve in combat. So in 1945, Candy and Norman, who she was now stuck with, and who definitely thought that the newest pregnancy was something that he was a part of.
Eek.
Yeah, they relocated to New Orleans. But after a year or so, their marriage finally crumbled.
I could see that.
Yeah, you know? Candy later told reporters, Norman's a fine man, but he was much older than me, and we really had nothing in common.
So it's really just like,
nah.
Yeah, it was just kind of lame.
Yeah, she's like, you win some, you lose some.
And he's just like, all right.
And he's like, okie dokie.
Yeah, I am old. So
yeah,
he's
like
that.
We actually have nothing in common, and you're kind of a lot. So
yeah,
bye.
You're a lot to handle.
Mm-hmm. I'm Ash.
And I'm Elena. We host the hit show Morbid. Normally, we focus on what happens in the lead up to death. But this time, it's about what happens next.
If you had the chance to be brought back to life hundreds of years in the future, would you take it? Lawrence Pilgrim, a lifelong scientist, planned for death his entire life. Because for him, death wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Wondery's new podcast, Frozen Head, tells the story of a man obsessed with immortality and the lengths he'll go to bring his wife with him against her wishes, tearing their family apart in the process.
Follow Frozen Head wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, Prime members, you can binge the entire series ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.
Decades before Anna Delvey began scamming her way into high society, Christian Karl Gerhardtsreiter was infiltrating America's most elite circles with little more than a fake name and a lot of charm. Bold, ruthless, and willing to kill, Gerhardtsreiter embarked on a caper across the West Coast, successfully evading the FBI for decades. Hi, I'm Sachi Cole, co-host of Wondery's podcast Scamfluencers, where we unpack the lives and schemes of some of the biggest scammers and con artists. In our recent two-part series, 3 Weddings and a Funeral, high society's top social circles become a playground for a fraudster. Follow Scamfluencers wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen ad-free on the Amazon Music or Wondery app.
So after the divorce, Norman ended up moving to Colorado, and Candy and the children stayed in New Orleans, where she was determined to make a career for herself as a fashion model.
Oh, look at that.
And she did actually start appearing in ads for local clothing stores. So
wow, look at her.
She started doing the thing. And then she went to New York on like just a little trip, and she got super inspired when she was there, because while she was there, she was able to take some classes at the Barbizon School of Modeling.
Oh, we've hit that one before.
She makes an appearance again. So then she comes home and she's like, okay, idea. And then she just opened the Candace Modeling and Self-Improvement School in New Orleans' wealthy Garden District.
The Garden District.
Do you know about it?
The Garden District is like that's where all those like beautiful houses are.
Oh, really?
That's where I think that's where the like AHS Coven house is.
Oh, really?
That's where Lafayette Cemetery is. Like,
Ooh, okay. So
Garden District.
she did that.
Mm-hmm.
She did that.
Hell yeah, she did.
Also, like, copy paste much, Candy,
Yeah.
you know?
No,
like,
it's true.
TM.
It's like, get your own idea.
Exactly. But I mean, there's lots of modeling schools, so whatever.
That's true.
But in local ads.
I'm just mad at her because I feel like she did something wrong.
Oh, yeah, she fucked her nephew.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That's
Yeah.
what it is. I feel like she did something like else wrong though.
Perhaps.
Possibly. But that's bad enough. I'll take that as the wrong thing.
There you go.
So yeah, fuck that. You copy and paste.
Yeah, don't copy paste. But in local ads, the school claimed to, quote, advise young ladies on makeup and hairstyling, provide tips on maintaining a streamlined figure, prepare them to model in fashion shows, and imbue them with self-confidence, grace, poise, and the elegance of speech that will make you a person of real distinction.
Yeah, let's imbue some confidence by making your figure streamlined. I like how they wrote that, like, maintain a streamlined figure. It's
What
like,
is
all
that
right,
even, like a
we get it.
streamlined figure?
You want them to be walking sticks. I get it.
That's fucked.
Yeah, that's, I mean, back then for sure.
Oh, definitely.
But it's like, girl, that's not confidence.
It's not confidence. Your body can look however the fuck you want your body to look.
Yeah, you're just going to make these gals feel bad.
Yeah.
You're going to beat them down so they think that they're confident.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Not cool at all.
I see right fucking through you, Candy.
Fuck you, Casey.
Fuck you, man.
She's dead now, so we should be careful.
Nope.
You don't like haunts.
You don't want to like rise her from the dead.
No, I do not.
I'm good.
Now, the school appeared to be successful, and it did provide enough income to support Candy and her kids. But there were also rumors that it wasn't doing that well, and that she was actually working as an escort or like a sex worker to make ends meet.
Okay.
But like, whatever. If
Yeah.
that's what she wanted to do, then great.
Yeah.
Now, in an effort to enter New Orleans' upper echelon, maybe because she was tired of rumors starting.
Oh, you hit that Lilo.
Thank you. She started volunteering with the New Orleans Opera in 1947, and she offered to meet with the prominent businessmen and wanted to like arrange donations for the organization. And that's where she met our guy, Jacques.
Oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm. Like Candy, he also had recently been divorced from his wife, and despite the 25-year age gap, the two began dating. And they were adults at this point, so who gives a fuck?
But I love how she's like, you know, he's 11 years older than me. We don't have anything in common because he's an old rotting bag of flesh.
Yeah.
And then she's like, this guy though, that's 25 years older than me. I think we got way more in common.
The problem with Norman was he wasn't rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't
There's
matter. Like
Yeah.
the age difference didn't
No,
matter. It was
it
just that he
definitely
wasn't
didn't.
rich.
There was that.
Because the thing was, immediately, Candy got access to the lifestyle that she had been dreaming of since she was a small kid on that rural family farm where she had
That's
to
true.
pick cotton and collect eggs,
There you go.
you know? So they got married in 1949. They got married while he was on a business trip to Fort Lauderdale. Like, just really made a little quick time to get
Just
married.
whoop.
I'm like, huh, romantic.
Yeah.
So upon returning to New Orleans, Jacques made the decision that he wanted to relocate the headquarters of his company along with his new family, and he wanted all of that to go to Houston because business was booming down in Texas between the finance and the oil industries. So it was a good move. Now in New Orleans, Candy had dabbled in high society for sure. She had rubbed elbows with the wealthy people out there.
Hell yeah.
But Houston, baby, my girl Meg's place, hometown, was different. It was different altogether.
I bet it was.
You know,
Yeah.
you didn't know where I was with that.
I did not.
Well, it was different. Jacques had purchased a plot of land in the city's River Oaks neighborhood, and they built a brand new 3-story red brick mansion.
Ooh.
My fucking dream.
I love a brick.
I love a brick.
I just love bricks.
I love a brick house. It was fully staffed. Candy had maids, cooks, butlers, any worker she could have ever imagined or
Damn.
desired. Jacques even hired a chauffeur to drive them around and drive him in particular to and from the office.
Like the Duran Duran song.
Yes, great song.
Yeah, that is a great song.
We listened to that today, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, good song. But this driver / chauffeur would be able to use one of the 7 luxury cars that sat in the driveway.
What the
Take your
fuck?
pick, baby.
Take your pick.
And in the evening, after Jacques was done with work, the chauffeur would bring him and Candy to any of the city's most exclusive restaurants and nightclubs.
Damn.
He would be wearing a perfectly tailored suit and she would be wearing expensive dresses and furs.
Of course.
I fucking love glamour.
Not a kid to be seen.
No.
Not in this life.
Never that. They have a full staff.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Upon arriving in Houston, Candy's priority was definitely to establish herself amongst the city's upper echelon. She had done it in New Orleans, but now she really wanted to go for it here.
Yeah.
So she started writing checks with Jacques' money to the more notable charities, and she was throwing fundraisers in her newly built home, where she, quote, strolled from room to room in stilettos, greeting her guests with a kiss on the cheek.
Okay, look at her.
I love it.
She's schmoozing.
I wish that it didn't end the way that it did, because I'm like, you guys could have had such a fucking awesome life together.
Yeah, you mean like with her fucking her nephew?
Yeah, I wish it didn't end
I
like
wish
that.
it did not end that way either.
Most of us around here would feel the
Yeah.
same. But the thing was, she was like an enigma to the society women of Houston. Like, all of them were like, what the fuck is she?
Like where did she come from?
She just really popped off and came to town. But they all also agreed that she was charismatic, she was flirty and fun, but she was also kind and generous, they said.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. And even when the rumors of her seedy New Orleans past started circulating among the Houston peers, it didn't damage her reputation like it probably would have if somebody who was like less charming or well-liked came along.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike many of Houston's high society, Candy's philanthropy...
Her philanthropy.
Her philanthropy.
Her philanthropy.
I don't want to know philanthropy. It's more fun.
Philanthropy sounds like
Phil and
I don't know. It
throppy.
sounds like something's floppy and it freaks me out.
You don't like flops?
I don't know. I know something about it.
Flip flop?
Anonymous.
Flip flop? Flip flop anonymous? Philanthrop? Philanthrop anonymous?
There you go.
Yeah. Her philanthropy. I did it again.
You did it again.
Her philanthropy and generosity. It really wasn't just for show. It didn't seem. No, it really wasn't. One night in 1957, while he was in Chicago on a business trip, Jacques called Candy to tell her about this fucking awful story that he read in the local paper about 4 children who'd recently been orphaned. Their father shot their mother and stabbed their baby brother to death.
Oh my God.
And they had no one.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and that's what Jacques is saying to Candy. He's like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
Like, I can't believe this happened. So this like actually really moved her, it seemed. Like she was really affected by this. And almost immediately she got on a plane, went to Chicago, and she and Jacques signed temporary custody papers for all 4 of those kids and brought them back to Houston.
Holy shit.
And the story was picked up by the Associated Press, and it was reported in papers across the country. And Candy told the reporters, "We have nothing temporary in mind, only permanent adoption." Like she really wanted to give these kids a good life.
Man.
Which is nuts.
That makes me sad. I hate this shit.
I do too. It's weird.
When it's like they do stuff like this and you're like, oh, you had a chance to be a decent human.
Mm-hmm. And you were a decent human.
God damn it.
You know, like where did it trail off?
Where'd it go?
Where do we go from here?
Where did you leave it? Who'd you give it to?
Nephew.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
God.
Now, you know, whether it was a true act of generosity or something more calculating, the adoption story made Candy and Jacques one of the most famous and celebrated couples in Houston.
Damn.
I do think it came from a good place. I
want it to. These are human beings that they adopted. I really hope it wasn't for anything other than to make their lives better.
No. It did win Candy a seat on the board of directors from some of the city's most prestigious organizations.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the situation is, as much as we want to sit here and say, no, I never want to believe that somebody would do that, like adopt human being children that have gone through one of the most traumatic events that I could ever fucking fathom for their own personal gain instead of just to make their lives better. The unfortunate reality is there are shit people that will do that stuff.
It's true.
So I don't know.
I don't
think any of us will know for real what their intentions were, but
no.
I'm going to hope it was pure.
I think from Jacques it was probably pure.
I feel like it was from Jacques.
And I think from Candy, I think at least part of it came from a pure place.
Yeah.
But I think she was somebody who was always closing.
I was just going to say, she seems like somebody who would do anything to get what she wants.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
she wants to climb those ranks.
But at the same time, it's like you're welcoming these kids into your home. You're giving them a better life than they ever could have imagined. Like they have a driver who can take them anywhere.
But I just hope that you're giving them the emotional.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like the material stuff is great, but it's like, especially what they've gone through.
They need emotional support.
Somebody who's there.
Yeah.
And is giving them a hug and telling them, like, I'm just really sad for these kids.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
I hope they were happy.
So I hope they were. Now, despite the tragic circumstances that brought them to their new home, the 4 newest members of the Mossler family, they seemed to take easily to their new lives in Texas. Norman and Rita, Candy's children from her previous marriage, they were in their teens at this point when the kids were adopted. They loved the kids and they found them super charming. According to Skip Hollinsworth, who wrote a really good article about this case for Texas Monthly, I'm going to link it in my resources. The expansion of the family actually prompted a bit of reorientation of the Mossler household, and in a good way. Candy transformed their massive ballroom into a playroom for the kids, and regularly had the chauffeur drive the family to drive-in movies together. Yep. Had the chauffeur drive them to the bowling alley. The family took vacation a lot in Galveston. They had a vacation house there. And Candy even had Jacques build a baseball field in an empty lot from across from their mansion in River Oaks.
Okay, so it at least seems like they were trying to give them.
It does.
You know?
And one of Jacques' employees taught the family how to play baseball.
That's adorable.
It does sound like they gave to their lives.
They put
emotionally.
Yeah, it seems like they were doing things to at least try to brighten them up.
I think so. So as the 1950s came to a close, it seemed like Candy had finally achieved her dream life, the life of wealth and privilege that she'd always wanted. And it seemed like she was happy to share it with others. But then in 1961, a phone call from her sister Elizabeth set in motion a series of events that would turn Candy's entire world inside out and change absolutely fucking everything in the most irreversible of ways.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Candy's older sister, Elizabeth, who is better known as Babe, her nickname was Babe.
Babe.
And I'm pissed that my nickname's not Babe.
I mean, nobody can be Babe except for Sinister Palm Babe.
That's true.
That's true.
It's given dark-sided.
It's given dark-sided. If you haven't followed that, go follow it.
Given dark-sided. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they called her Babe, and her last name was Powers. So she called her sister Candy that day because she needed her help. Her 20-year-old son, Mel, had been arrested and convicted of fraud in Michigan because he had, quote, pursued an 89-year-old man to buy $20,000 of worthless stock in a fake magazine subscription firm.
So he's a piece of shit.
152 gajillion %.
Cool.
Yes. He'd been sentenced only to 90 days in jail.
That's stupid.
But now he was out, and Babe really didn't know what to do with him. She knew that he needed to be pushed onto a better path, and she figured that Candy would definitely be able to help with that. Which is, when you think about it, so sad, because Babe, Elizabeth, only wanted, like, the best for her son, and she wanted to steer him onto a right path. And this one phone call changed his entire life and Candy's because of decisions that they made in every fucking way.
This is her sister.
Yes.
Like, her sister called her and was like, I need help.
That's the thing. Like, it's not even like a case where it's like an in-law and she's not related to her nephew. She's full-blown related to him.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And
my.
To do that anyways, like, goodbye. But to your sister?
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking with your sister, too. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like, what?
No.
But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So, Babe was hoping that Mel could go stay with Candy and Jacques for a while while he got back on his feet, found a job, that kind of thing. And Candy was always generous with what she had. So she said, of course, I'm always willing to help family. Like, send them on over. And it's interesting because I'm like, did she already have feelings for him, or is this something that happened when he moved in? Like, I'll never know. But Melvin, what's his deal?
What is his deal?
He's a dickbag. He'd been born on January 13th, 1942 in Birmingham, Alabama, to Garrett and Elizabeth Babe Powers. A few years after he was born, his father moved the family to Phoenix, Arizona. And his father owned and operated Powers Aviation. It's kind of funny because it reminds me of Del Millard.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah. It was a business that, quote, fueled, repaired, and sold small private aircrafts. Now, if Garrett's work, impressive work ethic, and commitment to his business ever left any impression on Mel, it was almost certainly gone by the time that Mel was in high school.
Ugh.
Just gonzo.
Awesome.
Throughout most of his high school career, he was lazy, he was grumpy, he was disrespectful. He sucked.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, he was a bully.
Oh, fuck this guy.
He was 6'4" tall. He had like a really athletic build. And a lot of people said that he used his, like kind of menacing presence to terrorize people that he thought were weak or vulnerable or just so he could have fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
A collective boo.
Boo, Mel.
Thank you. So when Garrett closed the airport business in 1960, Mel used the separation from the family business as an opportunity to get away and see the country,
Oh, yeah.
He just wanted to go travel around the world.
Yeah, he's earned it.
No. He joined a, quote, roving band of dubious characters.
Wow.
Yeah.
A roving band of dubious characters.
Yeah. Don't you like that?
I love that.
I love that a lot.
I'm going to start referring to a lot of groups of people as that.
I have in my head exactly who you think is a dubious character.
Yep.
Yep. But
a roving band of dubious fucking characters.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Go
But yeah, he joined them in a door-to-door magazine subscription service that was not real.
I was going to say that must be nefarious.
Yeah.
It sounds not nefarious.
It's very nefarious. It was a scam operated by a career criminal named Arthur Grimsley. With a last name like Grimsley,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, you have to be a career criminal.
Like, you are a career criminal.
You
like
just
that.
are.
You were born a career criminal.
They handed you the card the day you were born.
Yeah.
But these young men would sign up unsuspecting customers for magazine subscriptions and then take the money before the customer realized that the magazines were never coming.
That's nice.
Like, okay, Jen Shaw,
yeah.
calm down.
Real Housewives reference.
It was during one of these door-to-door sales that Mel was actually caught for the fraudulent stock sale in 1961, Jesus.
Idiot.
And that led him first to jail.
Not you, by the way. I meant Mel.
Oh, I know
I
that.
just realized that. I was like, that was right after.
Yeah, that's written down somewhere.
You idiot.
But he first went to jail, like we know, and then also, like we know, to Candy and Jacques' front door.
I'm really worried about where this starts.
You should.
Yeah.
You should definitely worry about it.
You should absolutely be worried.
Yeah, I'm not going to even lie to you.
Yeah.
From the moment he arrived in Houston, Candy was taken with her nephew.
I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, he had the body and the confident swagger of a movie star.
Of your sister's child.
Yep.
That's what he has.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Yep.
She happily welcomed him into their home. She gave him his own room, gave him a car to drive whenever he wanted. But however, if he was really going to fit into her lifestyle, he would have to make a few physical changes. So not long after he arrived in Houston, he did visit a plastic surgeon for 4 procedures. A tonsillectomy, a procedure to make his ears closer to his head.
Oh.
A procedure in which his face was actually sanded in order to minimize his acne scars. And for some reason, he got circumcised.
Okay.
Like, why?
I was gonna ask that same question, but I also didn't want to know the answer, so I didn't ask it.
Me either, and I didn't look further into it.
I'm really
not
glad
even
you
gonna lie
didn't.
to you. I was
Thank
like,
you.
There's just some things
Yeah.
people don't need to know.
There's some things that I just,
and
I'm
if
fine
you
without knowing.
if you need to know, like, just continue
go
down
find it.
the Google path.
Yeah.
But I didn't need to know that.
No, I would have stopped.
No.
I would have stopped there.
That's not for my knowledge.
Nope.
So at Candy's request, Jacques hired Mel for a position as a repossessor for one of his auto lenders.
A repo man.
A repo man. We love those. It was actually the perfect job for him, though, because of his unpleasant attitude and menacing figure.
Yeah, he sounds like a repo man.
Yeah,
So.
finally, he was an asset. But not for long, because by late 1963, about a year and a half after he'd gotten to Houston, Jacques had Mel fired and then had him escorted off of their property in River Oaks.
Oh.
And he forbade him from ever returning.
Holy shit.
And then he himself, Jacques, immediately left for his condo in Florida. He was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Whoa.
He was pissed about something.
What the fuck happened?
But when anybody asked, Candy would just say that Jacques had found out that Mel was leaving the company to start his own business, and he was really pissed off about that.
I don't think that's it.
No, me either.
I don't think that would piss Jacques off as much as that did.
I think you might be onto something.
Yeah.
By George, we've cracked the code.
Something about it just doesn't ring true.
Do you know that I just found out that the expression is by George?
What did you think it was?
By God.
I mean, you could say by God.
In that movie, did they say like, by God, we've cracked the code? Or did they say
it's like,
by George?
I think we've got it.
What about cracking the code?
I don't know where that came from.
Oh.
By George, I think he's got it.
Why is it George?
I don't know. Oh, but probably the king.
George?
Like King George? Like by George, I think he's got it.
Who's King George?
Like King George.
Which one?
Like, look at, I'm going to look up the origin.
Like, look at.
It feels like it would be like, you know, instead of saying like by God, you'd be talking about the monarch.
Oh.
The origin
okay.
of by George.
By George, we've cracked the code. Dead air.
An old English oath invoked immediately before charging into battle as late as World War I. And it's, and you know what? You can say, well, you can say like by God George or by Saint George.
Huh.
So there's that.
Well, I just found out that it's not just by God. The whole time I thought it was by God.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's also, it's like Shakespearean as well.
I like George better.
You know? By George.
Well, anyway, so Jacques was like, bye, George, I'm out of here. Bye, George, I'm out of here. I cracked myself up. But as for why he'd left on an unplanned trip to Florida, everybody was like, well, where's George? Where's George?
And they're like, I don't know, George.
I didn't mean to say that. Where's Jacques? Like, what happened? Candy was like, oh, he just went to oversee the opening of a new bank in the Miami area. We're going to be joining him there in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I don't think you are.
They did.
Oh.
So it seems like Candy may have been trying to put off any speculation about marital issues between her and Jacques.
Seems like it.
But she did, and she brought the children with her. They actually did join Jacques in Florida. It was just several months later in June of 1964.
All right.
Now, as far as the kids were concerned, their trip to Florida was like any other summer vacation. They went to the beach. They spent days at the pool, at Jacques' condo building. And they didn't even seem to mind the frequent trips to the emergency room in the evenings, where Candy would receive injections to control the sometimes overwhelming migraines that she suffered with for most of her adult life.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sucks.
Yeah, but I'm like, why can't Jacques just watch them? Like, why do you gotta bring the kids to that?
Yeah,
I
damn.
feel like you're doing something else,
Huh.
in my opinion.
In my opinion.
IMO. Now, the last of the ER visits occurred on the evening of June 30th. Candy piled all the kids in the car and they drove to the hospital. But along the way, she had to stop to mail some letters at a nearby hotel. And then she had to stop again because she had to get dinner for the kids. And then finally, they got to the hospital a little before midnight.
What?
It's just all weird.
That's strange.
After waiting several hours to be seen, she finally was seen and given her injection. And she and the kids finally made it back to Jacques' apartment around 4:45 a.m.
She needs some Excedrin migraine.
She certainly does.
Like, that's too much.
That's the ticket.
Yeah.
So they get back at 4:45 in the morning.
Oh.
And it was then that Candy made a horrifying discovery. When Candy and the kids entered the apartment, they found Jacques lying dead in a huge pool of his own blood on the living room floor.
Oh my God.
His black lab puppy, Rocky, was unharmed, but helplessly leashed to the balcony door and barking for help. So Jacques had been bludgeoned over the head with a very, very large, heavy object and had been stabbed 39 times.
Holy shit.
In the heart and the lungs with a, quote, thin bladed knife, something like a stiletto.
Ooh.
Rather than call the police, Candy ran to the neighbor, Irene Durr, who called a local physician, Dr. John Handworker, but only reached his answering service. So when Dr. Handworker finally did reach somebody in the Mossler family, it was 20-year-old Rita, and she explained the situation. She was basically panicking, and she told the doctor, someone's broken into the apartment, and I think my father is dead. He's
God.
lying on the floor. He's covered with blood. So the doctor had been actually a close associate of Jacques for many years, and he knew him really well. But he was like, why the fuck did you guys call me and not you got to call the police.
What the fuck?
So Rita told him, Mother is in hysterics. She asked me to call you first. So he told her he was about a half hour away, but that they needed it to call the police.
Call the fucking police.
And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to call the police for you. And then he started making his way to the apartment. So nobody there called the police.
And he's like on his way being like, I don't know. I'm not at the scene, but like,
I'll call them.
Go there.
Yeah.
The fuck?
So when Deputy James Jorgensen of the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Department arrived at the governor's large apartments, he was met at the apartment door by the one, the only Candy. And she looked more annoyed or impatient rather than upset or traumatized.
Huh.
And she just told him, there's been some trouble.
There's been some trouble.
Like, that's one way to put it, Candace.
Wow.
So inside the apartment, it was more or less what Rita had described to Dr. Handworker. Jacques was lying on the floor. They had actually covered him at this point with a light orange blanket. One of his legs was exposed, and his hand was still clutching the drapes.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. When Jorgensen removed the blanket, he noted that Jacques was nude other than a white undershirt, which was now almost completely soaked in blood.
Yeah.
And from the doorway, which was like several feet away, Candy screamed, "Oh, Jack, what have you done?"
What?
What have you done? She said to her dead husband.
What the fuck?
So the comment seems strange to us. Also seems strange to the deputy. And he was like, is this lady implying that like her husband's somehow responsible for his own death?
Stabbed himself 39 times?
Like what if
bludgeoned himself?
What have you done?
Yeah.
It's so weird. So several days later, when the autopsy was conducted, Dr. Joseph Davis's report would confirm that Jacques had sustained 2 significant blows to his head. And they only ever identified like that the blows to the head is coming from a blunt object, but they never found what the object was.
That's interesting.
The first was to the back of his head, and it crushed his skull on impact, which would have caused significant brain damage or death.
And hopefully he was unconscious.
You would think. I definitely would think so. Now, while the other blow was to the side of the face, and that one shattered his cheekbone.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The stab wounds to the chest, again, 39 in total, were about 2 inches deep.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm. So Dr. Davis concluded that it would have required considerable force. And that alone indicated that this killer, whoever this was a strong individual.
Huh.
Maybe a big guy.
I was just going to say.
He indicated that the stab wounds to the left lung and the heart were the cause of death. But he also indicated that, like I said, that initial blow to the back of the head would have likely been fatal, which meant that the stabs to the torso were entirely unnecessary.
Jesus.
And they were really just like complete overkill.
Yeah.
So now that they're like, okay, murder, duh, the officers do a door-to-door canvass of the building, hoping that maybe somebody caught a glimpse of the killer as they fled the building. But nobody really saw anything in the early hours of the morning. But some people did hear things. Irene Durr, that neighbor who actually called the doctor, she told the police that she didn't hear any struggle. She did hear the dog frantically barking around 2 a.m. And she later told reporters, "That's all I could hear was incessant barking. I did not hear any screams or any voices." Which, if you're not hearing any screams, I think that first blow did knock him out and
absolutely.
Probably kill him.
Yeah.
Another neighbor, Peggy Fletcher, also heard what she now believed was the murderer, telling officers she was awoken around 2 a.m. and she heard a man's voice yell, Don't do that to me."
Oh.
Followed by the dog's incessant barking. So the noise prompted her to go to the door, and she heard someone close the door to the Moslers' apartment and then heard heavy footsteps down the concrete stairway, which led her to believe that the killer must have been a man based on those footsteps. And then another neighbor told the police that he had seen a man and a woman leaving the parking lot in a yellow 1959 Dodge with a Dade County tag just after 2 a.m.
Huh.
So given the man's wealth and status in the banking industry, Jacques, police initially suspected that the death was the result of a robbery gone wrong. But then at the same time, something about that didn't really feel quite right to them.
A robbery gone wrong never feels quite right.
No, people, of course, are sometimes killed, like, during a robbery.
Yeah.
But they're not beaten over the head and brutally stabbed almost 40 times.
No.
it just doesn't
Not
work
usually.
like that. Not in anything that I've ever seen. And also, the case lacked the telltale signs of a robbery. Nothing was obviously missing. There wasn't really any sign.
The robbery part.
Yeah, the robbery part. There didn't really seem to be any kind of sign of a struggle, and there was no indication whatsoever of forced entry.
Yeah.
So shortly before 3 a.m. on the morning, actually, that Jacques was murdered, officers had taken a man into custody who was discovered walking along the road with blood smeared all over his shirt.
Wow.
Yeah. The man said that he had been assaulted by 3 teenagers who stole his car. So the officers took him to the hospital for treatment. But now, in light of the murder, the sheriff's office was like, oh shit, like, is that the guy that's responsible for Mossler's death? So they brought him in for questioning, but they eventually released him because it was apparent that he had no connection with the murder.
Wow.
Red herring.
What a coincidence.
I know, isn't that crazy? And also sad because that's probably
Like
true.
he actually got, that's really sad.
Yeah, I know. So they were running short on leads. They really didn't have any evidence to work from, and they were like, shit. But detectives Jerry Evans and Pat Gallagher returned to Candy Mossler in the hope that she might have some kind of idea about her husband's enemies, like anybody that might want to kill him or might want him dead. So from the moment they sat down with her, she really defied the expectations of what one would assume was a newly widowed woman.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but again, we can't judge a book by its cover.
It's never good to judge grieving.
It's not. But she was impeccably dressed. She did not have a hair out of place. Not even a piece of jewelry was out of place.
Yeah.
But whatever. Evans and Gallagher were put off by her calm demeanor, though, and like just that she looked perfect.
I mean, yeah, you do have to take some kind of cue from it.
Yeah, it just didn't align with what they expected of somebody who just lost their husband in a fucking shocking act of violence. I don't know that if I found my husband or my soon-to-be husband like that on the floor, that my hair would look great.
Yeah, I don't think so, but
Probably not,
that's
but
just me.
Different strokes for different folks. So the detectives knew Mossler was a high-profile man in finance, and if the murder was not the result of some kind of robbery gone wrong, they thought maybe it had something to do with shady business dealings. And Candy was like, oh my God, yes, you're right.
She was like, oh shit, you nailed it. That's a
Yes.
great motive. Thank you for telling me that.
She said, you know what? It could have been one of the many, many former employees. It could have been rival bankers. It could have been customers who defaulted on a loan. Or it could be this.
Oh.
And this was something that the detectives were not expecting. According to Candy, when Jacques would take solo trips to Florida, he would often use the opportunity to, quote, entertain young men that he had met on the beach.
Oh.
We don't know if this is true at all. I think this might just be Candy telling stories.
Sounds to me like it might be.
Yeah. She said, in fact, just a few days earlier, she was visiting the apartment, and Jacques had gotten several phone calls from a man who, according to her, quote, spoke in feminine tones.
Wow, Candy.
Fuck off, Candy.
Wow, Candy.
And she said, I'm suspecting that he's leading a gay life out here in Florida.
Okay.
Like,
That's I love how she's taking this as an opportunity to be like, yeah,
you know what?
I'm just gonna
Let me spin this yarn.
I'm either gonna lie or I'm just gonna out him now.
Out him entirely.
Like, nice.
Like, that's fucked. If that was true, you just outed him to like so many people. That's fucked.
Yeah.
And if that's not true, why are you making up stories?
Yeah, like, what the
especially why are you making up stories in a time where that is damaging to someone?
That's the thing. Like, come on.
That's not cool. So it was entirely unexpected, this whole angle, but it did fit a crime scene that pointed toward a crime of passion. But then at the same time, detectives were like, I don't know. I think she's trying to sell us a story that she wants us to believe, not revealing some kind of like embarrassing detail about their personal lives. And years later, Jerry Evans, one of those detectives, would tell the jury that he felt as though she was acting during the interview.
Yeah.
He said she was speaking softly to the two of them to like theatrically imply that she was so shamed.
Yeah.
She's like, I think he might be one of those gays.
One of those gay men.
Like, fuck off, Candy.
Yeah. Honestly, fuck right off, Candy.
Hate. So among the more interesting bits of information gleaned from the door-to-door canvass was that a few of the neighbors had also seen a white Chevy sedan leaving the parking lot in the hours just before the body was discovered. And when detectives did a little digging into Candy's alibi, they learned that she had indeed been with the children at the hospital that morning before she'd found Jacques. and that they had driven there in her red Pontiac convertible. But for this particular trip, she had also requested a white 1960 Chevy sedan.
Oh, you don't say.
A Bel Air.
Look at that.
From Jacques' company, Alan Parker, which had been delivered to the Key Biscayne Hotel and Villa on June 26th, where the family was staying while they were in Florida.
Oh.
The family, including Mel.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So when they checked with the staff at Alan Parker, they were able to confirm that this car had been checked back into the garage by a tall, dark-haired man at exactly 5:19 a.m., which was just a few hours after the murder happened. So when Evans and Gallagher returned to speak with Candy on the morning of July 1st, they found her in the company of her personal lawyer, T.M. Doyle, who was a family friend that for some reason she introduced as Vincent Caltagirone.
That doesn't fit.
No, his name is T.M. Doyle.
I was just going to say T.M. Doyle.
Vincent Caltagirone.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm like, okay, Candy, take several seats. And they also found her, so in the company of her lawyer, but also 2 bodyguards that she'd hired to protect the family from whoever had killed her husband, because she had no idea who it was.
She had no idea.
Once again, she pushed the whole theory of a burglary gone wrong and told the detectives that thousands and thousands of dollars worth of jewelry was missing from her apartment.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, yeah, like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, could you make us a list of everything missing so that we can circulate it to the pawn shops and, you know, keep this whole thing going? And her lawyer was like, no, she is too distraught to do that right now. Absolutely not. She could never take a proper inventory at this time.
Could never.
She could never. You're done.
You're done.
You're done. So it was obvious now that the burglar story wasn't an option. So she returned to the story about Jacques' secret gay life.
Yes, of course.
She said that she'd actually gotten additional calls from a myriad of other men. But neither detective took the bait. They were like, we see what you're doing here, lady.
Absolutely.
Instead, they told her that the white Chevy that she had rented had been located and it was discovered to have blood inside of it.
Ooh.
Yeah. So she responded and told them she knew nothing about it and she had asked a porter to return the car when she realized that she wouldn't need it after all. She'd never even driven it.
Wow.
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But a break in the case finally came that afternoon when the technicians working on that car ran a fingerprint and they had found that in Jacques' apartment. And it came back as belonging to one Melvin Lane Powers.
Oh.
Boom. So a few hours later, 6 more fingerprints belonging to him were discovered inside of that car.
Oh, damn.
6 more fingerprints. So
Explain
7
that.
in total.
Explain that.
Given that the car had been returned to the Alan Parker lot at the airport, the detectives were like, oh, good. Our killer dropped off the car and immediately flew out of state. Awesome.
Great.
Yeah. But they had to obviously check in on this. And when they did, they found out that the passenger list for the 7:10 a.m. flight from Miami to Houston on June 30th was boarded by a man by the name of M. Powers Mossler.
Who's that?
M. Powers Mossler?
Yeah,
I don't
who
know.
is that?
That's not anybody's name that I know.
Yeah, it doesn't sound familiar.
Your last name's not Mossler.
No, it's not.
So within a day or two of Jacques' murder, it had been pretty obvious that he was not killed in a robbery gone wrong.
Yeah.
Then the detectives put no stock in Candy's theory about him carrying on some kind of secret gay life. And in fact, between the fingerprints found at the apartment and in the Bel Air and the passenger manifest for the flight from Miami to Houston, they were pretty sure that they found their killer, or at least knew his name.
Ding, ding, ding.
Now they just needed to know why he had killed Jacques.
Yeah, I would like to know.
Yeah. So on Friday, July 3rd, the Houston police arrested Melvin Powers at the mobile home sales company that he recently opened with money from Mossler.
Wow.
Like, how fucked is that?
That's really fucked.
Yeah. And based on evidence that had been collected from the scene and at the airport, he was charged with the murder of Jacques Mosler.
Damn.
Yep. He was held at Harris County Jail over the weekend. And during that time, investigators searched his home and his business for additional evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Additional. I don't know if I said that right.
You did.
Okay, good. We're really hitting a wall here.
Yeah, we are. It's late.
It is.
So excuse us if we're like,
Yeah. So on Monday, July 6th, a grand jury convened in Harris County, Texas, and they were considering whether or not to indict Melvin. So they did take a recess on Tuesday because detectives announced that they had discovered potentially significant evidence during their search of the mobile home company.
Ooh, you don't say.
I do say. On Tuesday, July 7th, they located letters addressed to Melvin Powers, signed only with the letter C, and with a return address of C. Mossler, Continental Hilton Hotel, Mexico.
I hate this.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know.
Yeah, the letters addressed, "My darling," appeared to be romantic in nature, and they included statements like, "I love you, need you, you are everything to me, darling, and I could not think of life without you."
I really hate this.
To her nephew, guys.
Please make it stop.
Her nephew.
I hate it.
Fucking gross. And by that time, actually, Candy had also returned to Texas and responded to the discovery by accusing Harris County District Attorney Frank Briscoe of being out to get her.
Okay.
And she said he was out to get her because of some kind of negative remarks she made about him while she was serving on a grand jury like years earlier. It was stupid.
That checks.
So Briscoe was like, you haven't been accused of anything yet.
But like, thanks.
And also, I don't have the power to convene a grand jury. And even if I did have a grudge against you, I don't. But none of the actions taken against him, like your nephew, could have come from me.
Yeah.
Like, so
He's like, stand down.
like,
Candy.
shut up. Yeah,
Stand down.
basically said via the press, Candy, take several seats.
Yeah, he absolutely did.
Yeah. So Melvin's mother and Candy's sister, Babe, also traveled to Houston at this point over the weekend to see her son. And she told the press that her son was innocent. And she said, and this breaks my heart, she said, "Nobody knows like a mother. He was always such a tender boy. He had no hate for no one."
Oh, that's sad.
It's like really sad. So within a day or two, the scandalous news of the love letters between Candy, auntie, and Melvin, nephew, had been reported in papers around the fucking country.
I hate it.
But it was not the first detectives in Florida were hearing of this potential love affair between the two. Actually, as investigators chased down the burglary and gay lover theories, one of Candy's own relatives had informed Evans that Melvin had actually been kicked out of the house when Jacques discovered Melvin and Candy, quote unquote, canoodling.
I don't want that.
The two were seen canoodling at Chris's Halloween party.
Oh my God, thank you.
I don't know if it's Chris. I think I might have made up the name.
I think
It's a first name, last name. The two were seen canoodling at Chris Evans' Halloween party.
Wasn't it the cousin?
The cousin?
The cousin that like that Aunt Amanda Seyfried's character is like
Seth?
Yeah, Seth Mozakowski. Is that what his name is?
The two were seen canoodling last week at Seth. No, it's not.
I need to know.
I don't know. You should Google it though. But I'm just like the two were seen. The two.
I think you were right with Chris.
I think it's Chris
Eisels.
Eisels. The two were seen canoodling last week at Chris Eisels' Halloween party.
There it is.
Like why
Had to hit that right.
Why does Mr. Duvall, why does he know that?
Yep, he knows.
Back to the story. As the stories of their incestuous romance made their way around Houston's stunned high society, Candy had fled the city at this point.
I mean, what else do you do at that point?
She's a high society lady, and it comes out that she's fucking her nephew.
That's bad.
Real fucking bad for the daughters of the American Revolution.
Certainly is.
Emily Gilmore would read her to filth.
Emily Gilmore would ruin her fucking life.
Forever.
She would get the last tea.
Oh, absolutely.
Always.
She always does. Always.
Never get the first one.
I fucking love Emily Gilmore.
Who doesn't?
But at this point, Candy... true.
Is the answer.
No, she love.
At the end, she does.
Always she love.
Yeah.
Just no like.
Different love.
Does not like.
Yeah.
So Candy, she fled the city. She had to. Disgrace on her name and her family. And she sequestered herself at St. Luke's Hospital. And she claimed she was suffering from a form of battle fatigue. Like the drama, mama.
A form of battle fatigue.
Like, ma'am, you don't even know.
You perform for the U.S. at the USO for the troops.
Like,
and you're gonna sit there and say you are experiencing battle fatigue?
Yeah.
Oof.
She sure did. She did that.
Just say it's been rough.
Say exhaustion.
Yeah,
at the least.
It's been a shit week.
Just like,
That's all you have to
I'm
say.
here because everything sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm crying. But the door to her door. The door to her room at St. Luke's was monitored by a private security guard. But that actually didn't stop her from allowing many, many reporters to crowd around her bedside as she suffered from battle fatigue. And she just had an impromptu press conference.
She's a lot.
While suffering from battle fatigue. I have such admiration.
She's a lot.
Like, fucking ridiculous. She flatly denied any romance between her and her nephew. And she said, "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If an atomic bomb were to fall, Mel would have been the first one to drag Jacques and the children out of the wreckage."
I don't think so.
But what about an atomic blonde, Candy?
Oh.
But
there it is.
She was blonde.
She was.
Regardless of what she said to the press, excerpts of the letters continued to be printed, and a number of photographs of them together at nightclubs were now circulating.
Ew.
It was like Perez Hilton before Perez Hilton.
Oh.
You know? After a few days at St. Luke's, the pressure from the press and the public became way too much, and she actually fled again. This time she went to Rochester, Minnesota. She rented adjoining hotel rooms, and she spent a ton of time at the Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
You know?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I know.
Random.
I know all about that.
So while she hid from the press in Minnesota, Melvin and his lawyers were actively fighting his extradition to Florida to stand trial for murder. And in the weeks after his arrest, his lawyer had actually petitioned the court for bond. That was quickly denied, though, by a judge. So meanwhile, the Harris County grand jury, they continued their exploration, of a possible alternative explanation for Jacques' murder, including a conspiracy which involved shady business dealings. They were still like, that could have happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
By June of 1965, though, as police continued their investigation into Mel and Candy's romance and Candy's connection to her husband's death, she and the kids visited Arlington National Cemetery on the anniversary of the murder to lay roses on Jacques' grave.
Oh.
She hired a professional photographer to document this event.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then she circulated those photos to the wire services for publication in any and all newspapers.
Why is she the way she is?
I don't know. Childhood trauma, maybe?
Yeah,
probably.
Possibly.
According to her, doctors had advised her that she was too weak for travel, but she insisted she had to get to Arlington National Cemetery. And she told them that she wanted to signal to the world that Jacques Mosler is never forgotten.
That's what you signaled.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. Now, to the outside world, it appeared that the Miami-Dade investigation of the murder was kind of actually running out of steam.
Oof.
And a lot of people thought that it was doomed to fail. But just 1 month after the scene at Jacques' graveside, a Miami-Dade grand jury indicted Melvin and Candy for the murder of Jacques Mossler, based on information and new evidence that they uncovered, which suggested that the two had actually been plotting to kill Candy's husband for a couple of years at this point.
What the fuck?
A couple of goddamn years.
Couple of years.
For the first time in a year, Candy Mossler and Mel stood side by side.
Ugh.
This time before a circuit judge, though. Circuit Judge George.
By George, I think he's got it.
By George Schultz. And he read the charges of first-degree murder, and they both pleaded not guilty. But Judge Schultz set an August 16th trial date. And during that, the state would have to make their case as to why they arrested Candy for murder and if she was going to, really do this.
I'm curious.
And in the meantime, Candace and Mel were bonded and released, actually. And they both returned to Houston to await trial. So initially, the trial was supposed to start on November 15th, 1965, but it was delayed a numerous amount of times. Wow, I'm tired.
I was going to say, it's cool. It's cool.
It was delayed numerous times.
It was delayed a bunch.
Yeah, attorneys on both sides were arguing over whether the two should be tried separately, whether they should be tried together. The prosecution preferred the latter. They were just arguing up and down the wazoo. So tired.
Up and down that wazoo.
But the delays and multiple pretrial hearings really provided additional opportunities for Candy to grab the spotlight, and she never missed a single opportunity.
Of course she didn't.
She was a stunt queen without a crown. Now, during the pretrial hearing in October, she arrived at the courthouse, accompanied by her 11-year-old son, Eddie, And at her own urging, he told reporters that he was there so they won't take my mommy and put her in jail.
Oh my God, kill me.
Like, don't use your child for fucking performative shit.
Yeah, that's like, really sad.
That's fucking up your kid. But similarly, when jury selection finally got underway on January 22nd, 1966, Candy actually invited a large number of reporters into the apartment that she started renting in Florida so they could just, I don't know, like witness her in all her domestic glory and just report it back to the nation. And she claimed that she had been given the wrong idea. Like they had all been given the wrong idea about her.
Oh.
Her statement to the press during that event would set the stage for the entire defense. She said, "I wasn't perfect. My husband wasn't perfect, but it was our personal life, just like you have one, just like everyone has one. If everybody's private life was laid bare and was brought forth into the open, how many of us could stand the exposure?"
I don't think that's the issue here.
No, the issue is that like you might have killed your husband and
yeah.
at the same time you were fucking your nephew.
Yeah, I think those two things are really like what we're really worried
like
about here.
You might have had your nephew lover kill your husband.
Yeah, like I don't give a shit about anything else in your life. I just care that you might have killed your husband with your boyfriend nephew. I don't like it.
And you know, like, sure, that's a solid point. Like if your life was brought into the exposure.
It's 100% true.
But like, don't be a murderous and incestuous human being. And then your life
that's
won't
not
get
the
brought.
issue at hand here.
Well, then your life won't get brought into the forefront.
Yeah.
And also, your life was always in the fucking forefront because you wanted it to be.
You sell like the pictures of you at his grave to news outlets.
Invited all of the people that you were telling this to here.
It's like, so this is not beyond your control. You're inviting it.
Exactly. But anyways, the trial finally began at 9 a.m. promptly on February 1st, Rabbit, 1966. And Richard Gerstein was arguing for the state. Clyde Woody and Marion Rosen were arguing in Candy's defense. And Percy Foreman and William Walsh were arguing on behalf of Melvin Powers. Because of the scandalous and taboo nature of the relationship between the defendants, the jury and everybody else in the room probably expected sensational opening remarks from the prosecution. They were probably fucking ready for it. But in his opening statement, Assistant State Attorney Richard Hutto made no mention of incest or any of the salacious details that were reported in the press. And he said only that the state would prove that an illicit affair was just one of the motives for murder.
Whoa.
I'm like, I don't know if we could boil that down to an illicit affair.
Yeah, I'd call it something
Just
different.
call it incestuous. Yeah. His straightforward approach was a little different than Percy Foreman's theatrical presentation to the jury in his opening remarks. Foreman and Clyde Woody would eventually present evidence and testimony that they claimed would prove their client's innocence. But before doing so, they said, you know what, let's muddy the waters a little bit here and remind the jury that there were more than a few people who would have wanted Jacques Mosler dead.
Eek.
Foreman told the jury, the state has told you that Jacques Mosler was stabbed in excess of 39 times. If each one of those 39 knife wounds on Mosler's body was inflicted by a different person, there would still be many times that number of persons left with justification.
Wow.
That's fucked.
That is a lot to say.
You're talking about a man that was brutally murdered.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Like, holy cow is right.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
If I was on the jury, I'd be like, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, I'd be like, that was real shitty to say, my dude.
I'm not going to believe anything you say from this point on.
Biased.
Yeah, like,
immediately.
I'd be like, excuse me, I'm out.
Excuse me, I'm going to disagree with everything he says.
Excuse me, I don't like that guy.
He could show me evidence and I don't give a shit because he's an asshole.
Judge, that guy's a dick.
That guy's a dick, I'm out.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
Sorry to delay your trial. But from there, he launched into a dramatic character assassination that included accusing Jacques of many things. He said that he was accusing him of, I don't even want to say this. He was accusing him of like awful, awful things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like,
and
like I shouldn't even say awful things. Awful things for back then.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Basically saying that he was like voyeuristic.
Oh.
He was a gay man. He, all these terrible
But they're
things.
making him into this like creepy criminal
Yes.
element.
Exactly. Exactly. And he assured them that if Jacques' shady business dealings hadn't gotten him killed, then surely his sexually deviant life did.
Being gay.
Yeah. To which I say, get fucked, sir.
Exactly.
And I wrote that in my notes with one of those old hearts that we used to write with like the arrow pointing left and then the 3. Yeah.
like
get
that.
fucked, sir. Heart.
That's right. Heart.
Yeah. Just like, I hate that back then it was like, he was gay, so he got murdered because he was gay and that's yucky.
It was probably just being gay.
Like, shut up.
Yep.
Ugh. So by the time the prosecution was finally able to call their witnesses, the defense had put on such a performance that anything a witness had to say would have been bland as fuck by comparison. Yeah. But the witnesses for the prosecution, they did make a compelling case. On the 10th day of trial, a handyman who had actually worked at the Mossler home told the jury about how on more than one occasion he caught, quote, Miss Candy and Mel a huggin' and a kissin'.
A huggin' and a kissin'?
That's a direct quote.
Oh,
a huggin' and a kissin'.
Oh, I hate it.
I hate it so much. Every now and again, it's
just
like
worse every time.
Yeah. Yep. Now, among the other witnesses called by the prosecution to testify as to the romantic relationship between aunt and nephew was Jess Young, who was a private detective from Texas. Young had actually known Powers in another context and told the court that he and his wife had run into Mel and Candy at a motel in Nassau Bay in Texas, where Powers introduced Candy as his wife.
Ugh.
Remember, Powers is Mel. Introduces Candy as his wife.
Oh my.
And called her Mrs. Powers.
Oh my God.
And then referred to Candy's son Eddie as their child.
What the fuck?
He said that it was his wife's son by a former marriage, but like now it was their child together.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Gross.
According to Young, Powers described himself as very much in love, and the two took frequent vacations together to Sun Valley and Mexico. And in his cross-examination, Foreman, though, pointed out that this guy Young and his wife had met Mel when they purchased a mobile home from him sometime earlier, and then that later that home was repossessed. So it poked a hole in the
Repo
story.
Man Mel.
Yep. He said, it didn't make you happy to have Powers come and take your trailer you didn't pay for, did it?
Ooh.
So that essentially just implicated to the jury that this
is not credible.
It was retaliation.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that
unfortunately
just poked a whole hole in that.
Yeah.
Now, the trial's 10th day turned out to be what the Miami Herald referred to as, quote, the most unsavory days of the long and bitter courtroom spectacle.
Whoa.
The defense took every fucking opportunity they could to imply or accuse any of the prosecution's witnesses of everything, from petty retaliation and ignorance to infidelity and, of course, homosexuality. All without evidence, always with objection, but still, it was devastating to the state's case against Mel and Candy. So the courtroom antics and theatrics, almost entirely on the part of the defense, were no doubt exhausting for the judge, the jury, the prosecution, fucking everybody, except for the reporters in the room, especially the tabloid reporters. It was all what Dave so perfectly called journalistic catnip.
Oh my God.
And that's our friend Dave, who helps us with research.
Dave is hilarious.
He called it journalistic catnip.
That's a great way to describe that.
I love him a lot. Reporters from all over the country had actually arrived in Miami, like traveling from everywhere. And they wanted to provide daily updates on the case in like whatever paper they were writing for. Actually, the Houston Chronicle referred to it as overflowing with, quote, love, heat, greed, savage passion, incest, and perversion. And
all of those things should not go together.
No, barely any of those things should. And the Chicago Tribune said that it was, quote, lubricated by sex, nourished by sex, and varnished with sex. This trial.
Lubricated? What was the second one?
Lubricated, nourished, and varnished with sex.
Lubricated, nourished, and varnished.
I'm honestly, sorry, I just swallowed in your ear, but I'm honestly shocked that they were able to like publish things like that.
Yeah,
then.
They didn't give a fuck.
Lubricated by sex in the fucking Chicago,
by sex
in the Chicago Tribune.
Like you just open the fucking newspaper
to eat your breakfast.
You just kick your feet up. Your dad just opens the paper and is like, "Well, fuck, that case is varnished by sex."
Yeah, that'll change you.
Damn.
Yeah. And the trial's glamorous and titillating air was only fed into by its main star, Candy Mossler.
Oh boy.
She arrived to the courthouse every fucking day dressed in furs, skin-tight dresses, and stilettos. It was like she was attending a fucking Hollywood premiere rather than a murder trial in which she was the accused.
She's the defendant in a murder trial of her husband.
Yeah.
Possibly by her and her nephew lover.
Yep.
And she's like, I better wear the best shit ever.
Yeah. She's like, let me just offend PETA while I'm at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So meanwhile, the real victim, Jacques Mosler, was being fucking crucified by the defense teams. Ugh. And they were handily turning the public against him because, I mean, all they had to say really was like, he was gay.
And everybody's like, oh, God.
Gross.
He asked for it.
Yeah, literally. Isn't that so fucked?
Oh, it's very fucked.
And the thing was, too, putting the victim on trial was actually a very typical approach for this guy, Foreman, too. Like, he did that in almost every trial. And in this trial, it would be no different. He took every opportunity to remind the jury. He said, quote, thousands of people hated the banker. Jacques was ruthless in business as any pirate who ever sailed the seven seas. A man who received so many threats against his life that he kept an axe by his bedside and frequently summoned thugs and gangsters into his home, employing them to deal with the blackmailers.
Wow. He called them a pirate.
You're so weird, dude.
Yeah.
Like, get fucked into the sun.
He's like, this guy who was murdered in his own home in the middle of the night
asked for it,
was a pirate.
He's also like thugs, gangsters, gay people.
Like,
I'm like,
oh God.
Get some fucking culture.
Get some culture, my friend.
Good travel, okay? But, you know, all good things must come to an end.
Yes, it does.
And of course, by the time that the Mossler trial reached its conclusion, it seemed as though many people, journalists and readers alike, had consumed more than their fill of the story. I think by the end of this, people were like, I'm done.
Yeah, like too much.
Yeah. As the jury readied for deliberation, the Associated Press wrote, quote, the trial story is one of the more sensational for some time, but with war and death on grand scale, it appears the public doesn't care for crime news the way they once did.
Yeah, it's like a whole ass war.
Yeah, you know, like people have other shit to focus on.
You know?
So testimony ended on March 1st with as much flair and theatrics as it had opened with. There were numerous demands for a mistrial. There were motions to dismiss from the defense. All of them were denied. And over the course of 31 days, the prosecution presented the jury with evidence and with testimony that very strongly implicated Candy Mossler and Melvin Powers in the murder of Jacques.
Oh, damn.
There was forensic evidence of Mel having been at the scene, multiple witnesses confirming Candy and Mel's romantic and sexual relationship, as well as their years-long desire to have Candy's husband murdered or murder him themselves. But the defense, like we know, hurled wild allegations, unsupported theories, possible alternative killers, bogus claims, all intended to slander the victim. They just wanted to obscure the prosecution's case. In his closing arguments, Arthur Hutto pointed a finger at Candy, though, and declared her most guilty. He told the jury, even though she didn't strike the fatal blow, the evidence shows she is more guilty than this man.
Whoa.
And with that, he shifted his filter to Mel. He said she's more guilty. Unfortunately, despite his best efforts, though, to make a compelling argument in the final hours, Hutto proved to be a rather unengaging speaker.
Eek.
Quote, one of the defense attorneys, a secretary, and at least one courtroom spectator appeared to have fallen asleep during his 80-minute closing statement.
Oh, damn.
80 fucking minutes.
Damn.
And meanwhile, the defense reminded the jury that, you know, despite the salacious details and apparent preoccupation with sex, this was a murder case. They said
it's not lubricated or varnished by sex.
No. They said, we're trying them for first-degree murder here. We're not trying a hugging and a kissing case.
Wow.
Direct quote. So the jury deliberated for 3 days before returning to announce that Candy and Mel were not guilty.
I knew it.
Not guilty of the murder of Jacques.
I knew it.
Candy collapsed in her chair and started convulsively sobbing. And Mel leaned back in his chair, like kind of seemed relaxed, probably for the first time in months. Even one of the jurors actually, through tears, it seemed like he was very relieved, but he was crying. And he told Candy, God bless you, ma'am.
What?
He didn't think she was guilty.
The fuck?
Or he probably was like, oh my God, this poor woman was married to a gay man.
Yeah, honestly.
How terrible. And as they left the courthouse, Candy was met by a mob of adoring fans who were elated with the verdict and shouting, Candace, we love you.
I can't.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Are you kidding me?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Are you kidding me? The district attorney's office, they did make a strong case, even if they didn't have a murder weapon. But from the moment the trial started, it was clear that this had nothing to do with justice. The prosecution didn't lose the case because they lacked evidence. They had plenty of fucking evidence. They lost because they were boring.
Wow.
That's all this comes down to.
So this is really just all tabloid shit.
That's exactly what it is. The defense teams, Percy Foreman in particular, spent almost the entire trial just making a mockery of this man.
Yeah.
And the people fell for it.
Wow.
It's so fucked.
That's really sad.
It's so fucked. So 10 days after the verdict was read, a book was published about the murder.
10 days?
10 days.
Damn.
And it was supposed to be adapted into a Hollywood film after.
Of course.
Candy told the press that she had no interest in having a movie made about this, but I think that was a big fat lie.
Yeah.
And
when
she
it comes right down to it, she'd be like, where do I sign?
She referred to it as that unfortunate Miami episode.
Oh, yeah.
The brutal murder of her fucking husband as
the father of your children.
That unfortunate Miami episode.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Unfortunate.
And she returned to River Oaks. But if she was expecting like fans like she had in Miami, she was fucking mistaken. One of the ladies in high society said after standing next to her at an event and moving her place, please, I wasn't about to be seen standing next to a hedonist. She was a murderer. She had sex with her sister's son. I don't know which is worse.
Oh, Jesus.
Right?
Did she say hedonist?
Yeah. She did.
Yeah, she did.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what
did.
I said. What did I say? Hedonist.
Hedonist.
Goodbye.
Philanthropy.
That one was intentional.
I love that.
Hedonist wasn't. Hedonist?
Hedonist. Yeah.
Hedonist. Okay, thank you. You know quotes.
It's fine.
Regardless of how she was received back in Houston, though, having been found not guilty meant that she was free to inherit Jacques' huge fortune.
Of course.
Yep. She also got to take over the majority control of multiple banking institutions.
Holy shit.
Because he's a fucking banker. And she was installed as chairman of the board on some of those.
Chairman of the board.
So with the inheritance, she purchased multiple properties. She invested in arts and theater projects. She also founded a music publishing company. And she wanted to publish and promote love songs that she'd been writing for years.
Ew.
She claimed that Judy Garland had expressed interest in recording her songs.
Wow.
There's no evidence of that being true.
I was gonna say.
But the press did report that as fact.
Oh, of course.
No fucking evidence whatsoever, though.
Judy.
Yeah. Now, after the case had ended, Candy and Mel kind of went their separate ways after a little bit. He stayed in Houston and they rarely saw each other because he focused on like a new business in real estate and she decided to stop fucking her nephews.
Oh.
But they did have a relationship for a little bit. Yeah. In the last months of that relationship, things got so bad that they would get into loud arguments in public. And there was one incident where Candy actually called the police and demanded that Mel be arrested for physically assaulting her.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm. There was no evidence that he had assaulted her, though. Whoa.
I almost threw my phone at her because I was trying to show her a picture of them.
That's them.
That's them, like holding hands.
Being incestuous.
That's really gross.
Yeah. You want to know something crazy?
Oh, no.
Candy got remarried in 1971.
What?
And wait until you hear what happened with this. She married a man named Barnett Garrison. He was a self-employed electrical contractor, and he also owned a nightclub. And he was also 20 years younger than Candy. So now, at first, she really loved the older guys, but then she loved the younger guys.
Oh, yeah, she's Coogan now.
She's Coogan.
Yeah, you know.
TM. So she gets married in 1971 to this man, Barnett. But a year later, police were called to her mansion and they found him face down on the patio in a pool of blood with a 9mm pistol by his side.
Whoa.
He suffered brain damage, a collapsed lung, broken ribs, sorry for the trigger, and multiple lacerations, but he was still alive.
He lived?
Barely.
Holy shit.
Detectives eventually determined that he had fallen 40 feet from their roof.
God.
And had landed on that concrete. And when they interviewed Candy, she said she had no idea what he was doing on the roof, but then blurted out that she had shot him.
Oh, what?
But that confused the investigators because he didn't appear to have been shot.
I'm so confused.
Me as well, and them as well.
Everyone.
So they said that they chalked it up to her being heavily medicated at the time of this fall, and the fall was officially determined to have been accidental.
Whoa.
That's not accidental.
Yeah, there's something's up there.
Unofficially, rumors circulated that he may have gotten drunk and become abusive one night. So she jammed an ice pick in his ear. Again, this is all speculation. And she had a relative help her drag him up to the roof, and they threw him off together. That was the rumor spreading in high society. They're like, you remember that bitch Candy that used to fuck her nephew?
High society rumors are fucking brutal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's ruthless.
Absolutely. So he lay in a coma for like 6 months, but he eventually regained consciousness. But he had no memory of what happened to him.
Oh, of course.
And no memory of being married to Candy whatsoever.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, bless his heart.
Yeah.
In a real way. Like,
truly.
Bless him. She filed for divorce in 1974, and she told the reporters that she did still love him, but that their relationship just wasn't going to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it working out after that.
Yeah. And her relationship with most of her children was also deeply affected by all of her antics in the years after Jacques' death. In 1973, 2 of her sons actually filed a lawsuit against her. They claimed that she had transferred huge portions of their inheritances to herself.
That's fucked up.
And that she only left them with $350 a month for living expenses.
That's fucked up.
Yep. So obviously this lawsuit created a big old rift between them, and she actually eventually wrote them out of her will.
Wow.
Isn't that fucked?
Wow.
Like, no matter what my kids do, I don't think I could write them out of my will.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but...
You're like, I don't know.
I don't know. In October of 1977, Candy flew to Miami. She was planning to attend a board of directors meeting for one of the banks that she inherited from Jacques. And after checking into her hotel, she called the doctor that she saw when she was in Miami. And she told him she was getting another one of her violent migraines and that she was going to need one of those injections. So he came by and he injected her with Demerol and Phenergan, I believe, Phenergan, which is a painkiller and a sedative. But what he didn't know was that she had already taken another pain pill prior to his arrival and injection. So the next day, October 6th, 1977, her secretary found her lying face down on the bed, dead from what would have been ruled a incautious self-overdose.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. She spent her whole fucking life trying to make it and then to stay in the spotlight. And then she ended like that.
Oh my God.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
Wow.
Absolutely fucking nuts.
That's bonkers.
That's the end of it.
And that's the end of Candy.
Quite literally.
And it's like, and then Mel just off he went.
She spent her whole life just trying to get in the spotlight. And like, she did. But in
the worst way.
In the worst possible way. And then spent the rest of her life trying to get out of it, but never could.
Damn.
Isn't it like weirdly ironic?
Yeah, that's oof. That story is just bad.
Bad.
It's bad shit.
It's fucking bad. I've heard it like a ton of times, but I think every single time I just like rummage it out of my brain. Like I'm like, no.
I knew like the name. I did not know the whole story at all.
Crazy.
So that's wild.
Crazy.
Damn.
Yeah, so like, don't do any of that.
Definitely don't.
But do keep listening.
And we hope you
keep
it
weird. But not so weird that you invite your nephew to your home to give him a better life, and then you start doing the nasty with him because that's illegal and you should never do that. Definitely don't also murder your husband because that's also incredibly illegal. Bye.
Yeah, don't do any of that.
Yeah, it's illegal.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to Morbid early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today. Or you can listen ad-free with Wondery Plus and Apple Podcasts. Before you go, tell us about yourself by completing a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.